the job. We have a national security interest in keeping jobs here in the United States. We can see that ever more clearly today. We have a plan by General Electric to actually make much of what goes on here obsolete, and then to say to the workers, well, look, you can't get these parts manufactured, not because you don't have the capacity, not because you don't have the ability, but because we're not investing in General Electric in Lynn. Well, when General Electric came to Massachusetts, they made a promise to invest in Massachusetts. And by that investment, we interpreted it to be in Lynn, in the workers, in the equipment and the technologies of the 21st century in Lynn, Massachusetts. This is an absolutely essential plant. It's been the heartbeat of the defense of our country for a century, and we just have to ensure that it continues to do the job. The workers are trained, they're ready, there's no question about their ability to do this work. It's a question I'm increasingly concerned by General Electric to make financial decisions about having a lower price overseas rather than having the workers here in Massachusetts, in Lynn, do this work. And so from my perspective, this is just another tip of the iceberg that is warning America, warning Massachusetts, warning Lynn that corporate profits are more important than America's national security and investment in the workers here who have protected it for generations. And so I'd like Kaz, if you'd like to come up and say a word about why this is so important and why we need to fight for these jobs.
So we've been in Lynn for almost 100 years. Workers that were here today talking to the senator go back generations. This work that they're trying to send overseas and to other shops in the U.S. South is critical defense work that we've always done and done well. Our machines are old, we have disinvestment, but we have the skill that keeps those machines running and gets those parts out the door. But the senator is right. GE is making poor decisions about the future of Lynn in order to increase their profit margins. It's wrong, and we appreciate the senator coming today to listen to us. Thank you.
So these workers make engines, and they are the engine of our economy here in Massachusetts. That's what the workers of Lynn represent. And we have to fight for them to make sure that they can continue to play that role. So be glad to stop here and answer any questions that you might have.
Senator, could you comment on the military attack in Ukraine overnight?
Yeah, my heart is with the people of Ukraine. Clearly, this is a decision made by one person, Vladimir Putin, to invade and destroy the sovereignty of Ukraine. It is absolutely unacceptable, and the United States, in partnership with our allies, has to continue to tighten the economic sanctions against Russia, to deny them access to the international financial system, to put crippling sanctions on the plutocrats of Russia, to ensure that they understand that they are going to pay a huge price in Russia for this action. And at the same time, we have to make it clear that we are going to deny them the revenues which they need on an ongoing basis in order to perpetrate these crimes against humanity. By that I mean that the bulk of the revenues in Russia come from oil and gas money. Dirty oil, dirty gas, which Russia exports and then raises the revenues that then finance their economy. So it is absolutely imperative for the United States, one, to make sure that Nord Stream 2 does not open. But we also have to make sure that we are creating a green energy revolution here in the United States. The all-electric vehicles, the wind, the solar, the battery storage technologies that will reduce and ultimately end our dependence upon the Russian business model, which is that they export oil and natural gas around the world. Last year, the United States imported $20 billion of oil from Russia, and that just has to end. And the best way to end it is by having an economic revolution, a technological revolution in this country and in Europe and in other countries in the world where we just go all electric vehicle and we just dramatically reduce and ultimately eliminate the need for that oil and gas money to be going into the hands of these Russian plutocrats. Then we will have the right long-term response. But in the short term, we need to put the strongest possible sanctions across the board on Russia. They are going to pay a huge price for what they are doing here today.
Senator, how concerned are you about the human toll that this could take and a possible humanitarian crisis?
Again, my heart goes out to the Ukraine people. There is clearly going to be a lot of suffering that is going to be endured by these brave people. And it could create a humanitarian crisis as Ukrainian people decide that they're going to just flood out of Ukraine into neighboring countries. The United States has to be ready to stand by to ensure that we are going to give help to Ukrainian people. There will be refugees. There are going to be people who are seriously harmed or killed because of this event, and we have to be there to say that the United States will be your friend, that we will be there to help you.
What kind of help do you think it would be necessary in that kind of situation? What kind of help are you talking about?
Well, again, if there are refugees, our doors should be open. We should be welcoming these Ukraine refugees to the United States. We should say that you have a home here, that we will not tolerate this worst battle since World War II, which has unfolded in Europe. And in the same way we had an open door after World War II, we will have an open door today in order to ensure that refugees are welcomed here, even as we stand shoulder to shoulder to ensure that we are going to impose sanctions on Russia so that they and their government and their plutocrats pay a huge price as well. Yes.
How do you interpret the threat for other countries not to interfere?
Excuse me?
How do you interpret the threat for other countries not to interfere?
Not to the threats.
Not to interfere with what's going on in the Russia and Ukraine, what's happening over there. Putin had put out a threat basically to the U.S. saying for anyone that interferes would face repercussions that were that have never been done before.
Right. Well, the United States is not going to have a military presence. Our young men and women will not be in this war against Russia. But at the same time, we have to stand firm to ensure that we are going to provide the resources that are necessary to provide help for the Ukrainian people. And to the Polish and other governments that are very concerned, we have to make sure that we are going to be providing the military assistance to them so that if Russia is considering a further incursion into Europe, that because of NATO membership, that those countries will be fully protected militarily as well. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Are you concerned that it won't stop here and that he, I know in your statement earlier you called Putin weak and delusional. I'm just wondering if you're concerned this is his end game or just the beginning?
Yeah, no, I am concerned that on top of Crimea, on top of the Donbass, on top of other actions which Putin has taken, that when they complete their mission in the Ukraine, that they then look to other parts of the former Soviet Union, and they begin plans to invade those countries as well. So it is absolutely essential here that the world come together and say to Putin that this is not acceptable, that it is a violation of international law, and that we are not going to allow you to do this and not pay a huge price, because if we don't do that, it will set a precedent for them to move into other countries that were part of the former Soviet Union.
Senator Markey, I want to get back to the meeting for a second. One of the things that GE is demanding that the union is demanding from GE is to invest in create multimodal brilliant factories with supplier parts and minimize supply chain disruptions, and building an American offshore wind supply chain on our shores. Could you elaborate what that would look like, as well as if the city of Lynn would be one of those cities, such as Salem, to have a supply chain part supplier for offshore wind parks?
Yeah. New Bedford is moving to be a part of this great wind manufacturing revolution. Fall River is doing the same thing down at Brayton Point. Well, Salem is using their now increasingly vacant waterfront to have the same kind of planning for offshore wind manufacturing and deployment. Well, Lynn is the home of General Electric. And right now, General Electric is one of the largest wind manufacturers in the world. In fact, we import wind technology from Europe that is manufactured by the General Electric company. So we're here, we're on the coastline. Lynn workers are ready to do this work. And inside of the Build Back Better bill, I actually have a $10 billion domestic offshore wind manufacturing tax credit in order to incentivize the manufacturing of wind component parts, turbines here in the United States. And Lynn is perfectly positioned to take advantage of that. We need General Electric to say to the Lynn workers, we want you to be a part of our future in wind. We want you to have this work. You have expertise in manufacturing turbines. We can repurpose that over to wind turbines, and in the 21st century, Lynn can play the same role that it played in the 20th century, this time fighting against climate change while producing thousands of new jobs here for Lynn in this historic plant.
And to follow up on that, I know that your colleague, Senator Joe Manchin, said he wants to do something related to climate. Have you been in conversations with him? I know that he said he's not a fan of the current Build Back Better bill, but said he would consider doing something along those lines of climate. Have you been holding conversations with him, or have been reaching out to him in regards to creating some sort of plan?
Yes, I have. And what Senator Manchin says is that the climate portions of the Build Back Better bill are the easiest part of the legislation to finish. And so my hope is that we can use that climate piece as the foundation for a new Build Back Better, and then put in any other provision which can also get 51 votes, and make that the new Build Back Better package. So it will be climate as the foundation. Then on top of that, it can be child care, pre-K for every child in America, and other provisions which can also get the 51 votes. So yes, Senator Manchin and I are talking, and he has made it very clear that he does believe that climate is something that should be at the heart of the bill. Are there any other questions?
Senator, can you talk about the economy, the effect of the war on the economy here in the United States? You know, that everything is going up, the supply chain is getting worse, and the gas prices are going to go up. Is there a plan from the government to help with that, or maybe prevent that?
Well, I think we first should begin with the deployment of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. We have hundreds of millions of barrels of oil in reserve here in the country. It is there to anticipate this kind of an event, which is going on in Ukraine right now. And so I ask President Biden to consider and to ultimately deploy that strategic petroleum reserve as a weapon that says to the oil markets the United States is going to respond. And in that way, it will send a message to the food and other industries that the additional cost of energy and the manufacture of their products is going to be minimized by the anticipatory action taken by the Biden administration deploying the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Question? Okay, good. Thank you all. Thanks for coming. Appreciate it.